is art a channeling process and a co-creative process? Or like, what is it, you know?
Yeah. Hi, this is Cristina Dam, and this is Liberate the Podcast, where we educate, motivate, inspire, and liberate your consciousness. Hi, welcome to another episode of Liberate the Podcast. We're going to be welcoming back Kristin today, and you'll know her from some of her other podcasts. And if you haven't watched some of those podcasts after this one, you might want to go back and hear, because there's a lot of different interesting topics that we've talked about and that we've explored. But today, we're going to explore spirituality and acting, and looking at one of Kristin's teacher's books that is all about a balancing act of, and pretty much it's like a metaphor for not losing yourself and kind of having that spiritual basis. And I believe that acting is a spiritual process, and that a lot of times, and it's a lot of self-work and self-development, and a lot of the classes that are done in acting classes are really like therapy classes too, right?
Yeah, it can be, yeah.
And so, so Kristin, welcome, and
Thanks.
it's so great to have you back. And so I wanna jump right in and talk a little bit about this kind of bigger, broader topic of spirituality and acting, and finding this balance, right?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's always been a spiritual experience for me, and it's kind of hard to separate the two. And yet, like, as an actor that has gone to like different workshops and went to college for a BFA in acting, it's separated.
Yeah.
And so I had this like search and this need to figure out these two passions of mine, because I felt like they were one and the same at the core, but there wasn't anything out there that I had been taught so far
that merged them, right?
Exactly, and this is one of the few things that has merged it for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear it all the time. I mean, having the space in Hollywood, and even the Los Feliz location, there's a lot of the customers and clients that come in are, actors or creatives in many different facets in life. But the interesting thing that I find is that it's like, it's almost as if, like, in, like you're saying, in the classes, in the traditional acting classes, and that it's separated, right? Even though a lot of the processes are really deep connection to your soul, to your spirit, to your essence of yourself, there isn't really this merging that happens at least on a conscious level, right?
Yeah, well, some of the techniques do. Like Michael Chekhov, once I started researching him, because of this book, actually, because Emmanuel talks about Michael Chekhov, but I was like, oh, there is like an understanding of energetics, like the energy system in the body that he teaches. But a lot of the things I've learned, the techniques, have been more of you're intellectualizing to create character. You're analyzing the script. Or if you are tapping into something greater than you, it's your subconscious and it's your imagination. But I was always like, no, there's something more than the subconscious. We're tapping into something a little deeper than that. And more than just our soul, I believe that there's an actual spirit, like an entity and energy of like each character that we channel. And I believe it's the same with other art pieces too, but we're sort of co-creators in the process. We co-pilot the art as it flows through us. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. That makes total sense. And even, acting and creating those characters, but even a lot of times when you watch a great movie or TV show, when the channeled storylines that end up happening too. And it's like everything about it is something that, there's so much more beyond, right?
Yes.
And when people can tap into that, they can tap out of putting their self and making it about them, and they can be about this energy force that they can be a vehicle to allow it to go through.
Exactly. I think it's a marriage of the two, the inside out or in the outside in process.
Yeah.
The balance of that, balancing act, that really creates beautiful art.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my belief anyway.
I love it. And so let's dive into a little bit more on some of the aspects of the book that really stood out to you specifically too.
Well, I want to start with the story of how I found out about the book.
Okay.
And then we'll go into what the book's about. Yeah, so I had went to acting school and acting classes and whatnot, and was working here at Liberate Hollywood as a cashier one day, and just putting it out there to the universe, to my spiritual team, like, I'm not happy with these acting books. I was reading like Uta Hagen and Stella Adler, and though there were beautiful things in the books, I was like, this isn't answering what I want. I want a spiritual answer, right? Mm-hmm. So I put that out there into the universe, and then in comes a customer, and he's an actor, and we start talking about it. He's a spiritually minded actor, tells me about Emmanuelle Chalet and her book, and so I look it up, I buy it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this opens a world for me, and this is one of a few different books that I've found now that do have a spiritual approach to acting, but this is one that holds a special place in my heart. And the main tenets for the book is that it's a holistic approach to acting. So it's that the actor is able to function in their normal everyday life, like really care for themselves and not lose themselves. Yeah. Because, I mean, everyone knows, like, the life of an actor is sort of crazy and hectic and exhilarating and beautiful, but going to all these different extremes and having the instability can sometimes make you lose yourself if you're consumed by the character. And so having a technique process that Emmanuelle outlines in this book called Energize is an energetic working on your energy body and your emotional body and with the spirit of the character to cleanse yourself, call it in, and then cleanse it and be able to leave the character when you need to leave the character. Yeah, because holistic approach. Yeah.
I've always thought, like I'm not an actress, but one of the things being like a therapist is like how hard it must be for people to in order to play the roles and be really in it. Some people become that character, right? Yeah. And then there's the extremes of the serial killers or the rapists or the other murderers, or just they're extremely depressed, or they're this or they're that, and you have these dark characters or dark times within characters' lives that need to be played within that actor's experience. Yeah. And I always wonder how do they not get lost in that energy?
Some people do, and that's the sad thing. Like, some people do get consumed, and it's hard for them to let go of that energy of that character, because they're so linked, and there's been a lot of deaths and addiction and whatnot that have come about that, I believe. And this book, she also believes it too, that she wrote about numerous actors that have had that problem as well. So I think it's important for actors to be able to learn to care for themselves and to be able to safely let go of a character. Yeah. Because you're tapping into something dangerous sometimes. You don't want to bring that to your loved ones, right? No. You want to be able to be like...
Well, and you also don't want to bring that to yourself, right? And to other areas of your life.
Yeah.
And then what do you think why is it so important to, kind of see acting as the spiritual process?
I think it's important because a lot of people think of it as you're conjuring something. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's half of the process is to use your imagination and your own parts of yourself and your own analysis of everything. But honestly, it's an embodiment, it's a channeling, it's a mediumship that's happening, which is such a spiritual experience. Like, you tapping into this energy. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe not every artist or every actor feels this way, but I know when I act and I'm really in the moment and I really have let go of fears and inhibitions, I can feel a flow, and it just kind of pulls me to sort of do things I wouldn't have analyzed to do, and it just happens.
Yeah.
And it's this magical experience, which feels, like Emmanuel says, like it's bringing you to another dimension because your vibrational level is completely different.
Yeah.
And so it is a spiritual experience. And even sharing art, like going to the theater as an audience member, you're experiencing that energy that they're tapping into. So it is a spiritual experience for them too.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole way around. And I think that might be, you know, the Academy Award winning actor versus not, you know, kind of aspect is the person that's really embodying the role, right? And
maybe sometimes,
no, but I mean, no, maybe not sometimes, but I'm just saying, like, I'm just throwing that out there, but like the good performances, like the good, like where people feel like they can feel the emotions, they can feel the character, they can feel the essence of that. And what you're just saying made me think of it as like that you're doing things that you wouldn't normally do or that you wouldn't think to do, but it's happening because you're embodying that energy and you're acting from that authentic space of that energy.
Yeah, and I believe some of the greatest acting is not just tapping into the character and marrying it, but tapping into a greater reason to channel this energy, having a goal, like I want to inspire people with this performance. Energy of the character, will you help me inspire people? Is this what you want? Yes. Okay, let's do this. And then I think that like brings a whole new level of performance if there's a bigger overarching meaning to it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, because then everything becomes bigger, right?
Yeah.
And the
meaningful.
the reasons the why becomes, you know, expanded, and people get out of their own way and they allow.
Yeah. Allow. That's a good word. Yeah.
Just allowing in the flow. And so, does this book gives specific like kind of techniques and things to help, or is it more theoretical, or is it a combination?
It has a combination of a lot. A lot of it is Emmanuel Chaulet's experience in France and in America as an actress, a working actor. And I love reading her story. And she kind of shows you what she learned and like, you know, the mistakes, and that she's like, oh, I learned that good art doesn't have to be created through suffering, and gives you her story on it. It's a beautiful like outline of her life. And then she paints this outline of Energize, the technique, for you to do yourself. You can record yourself going through. It's sort of a meditation.
Oh, neat.
And she'll go through that, but she also explains metaphorically and philosophically, like, and in detail, all of the chakras and all the energy centers, so you fully understand like what this meditation entails. So it has a lot of different layers to it. I think it's really healthy though for actors. Yeah, and it's not hard to understand, but it is a lot of information to soak in for sure.
But I can respect and appreciate the information is followed with experiences, and then, you know, that helps you integrate it.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, you can relate it. Yeah.
And what do you think that it gave you the most from reading? Because, I mean, you were already a spiritual person and an actress, and you had both of those worlds. And what do you think were some of your ahas or the things that, as a result of going through the exercise and understanding the theology of it, that you really took away personally?
The biggest ones I had was like, oh my gosh, there's other people like me. I was like, why haven't I met other people that have wondered the same thing? Like, where are these other techniques for people that look at acting as something a little different? I don't want to just do a recall of a sense memory and bring it to a scene. Like, that's not how I want to approach acting, you know? And so it's like, oh yes, there's like-minded people in the world. And then another one was that she's honestly went through some of the, I haven't went through everything she's went through, but I've had some of the same issues she's had. And so it gave me an answer.
Yeah.
And helped me to understand that where my intuition was going, that you can have a healthy personal and spiritual life and go into these intense dark roles and be a powerful actor, that you can have both of those. And I think that was a great realization for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you've recommended this book to other people too.
I have, yeah. I've tried to have friends borrow it and whatnot, but I think this is the place I discovered it, so I think it's kind of the perfect place, since your motto is where spirituality and creativity combine, right?
Yeah, and these are the two aspects.
That's it. Yeah. The balancing act of that, like
I love it.
Bringing that to being, yeah.
And I think that there's got to be a lot of different actors, actresses, and creative types that are merging those two worlds, and that's what I was talking about in the beginning. Yeah, in the beginning, it's like, you know, hearing so many people come in and have that where they are almost there, they have their spiritual life and then they have their acting or their artistic life, and they have it as these two separate aspects, but seeing that they're really not separate, you know, like I think that, you know,
it's a good realization.
You know, they're just as much, and anytime you're working on this and you're in the creative and acting and other art forms and stuff like that, you're embodying spirit every time that you step out of yourself and step into whatever this energy or the space is of allowing, right? And so it's already happening. It's just whether people have that realization that all those classes were forms of spiritual aspects and understanding and deepening, you know?
Yeah, and it's not for everyone. Not everyone. I'm sure there's great actors that don't take it this way. I think there's some that do need this, and this is good for them.
Well, this is I mean, I think that our audience is spiritual people, right? You know, right, that are watching this. So I think, you know, the people that are already on that path of spirit, and if anybody's watching or listening that was in that space like you, of how do we make these two worlds mend, and that they can be one of the same instead of two separate individual aspects of thyself, right?
Yeah.
That how do we, and it's more than anything, I think it's a mindset, because they're already connected.
Yeah.
They're just, if you don't believe they're connected, you know, if you don't believe that, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know, like, again, it just popped into my head, so I'll just go with it. But years ago, that Yellowstone was having a really bad problem in their landscape and the different environment that was happening there. And I'm stumbling on all the details, but it's pretty known thing that what they found out was they needed to bring back the wolves to Yellowstone, because the removing of the wolves from Yellowstone were causing all of this. They were causing the rivers to even flow a different way. It was causing all of the trees and the landscape and everything to be shifted by having the wolves not in Yellowstone. And they released the wolves back into Yellowstone. And you wouldn't think that the two would be related. You wouldn't think that the wolves had an impact on which way the river current was flowing and how it was building up and stuff, but they did, because it affected the different vegetations and the way that they grew and the root structures and all of these other stuff. Yeah. But it was so connected, even though from a glance and what was thought, like, oh yeah, remove the wolves, it's not a big deal, it's going to make Yellowstone safer for tourists and people.
Yeah,
and and it's not going to be a big deal. But then when the whole geography of the park was at risk for the ecological system of it, and they were trying to understand how to go back into harmony, they realized that the one thing they took out were these wolves. And they put back the wolves, and they're like, oh, it's all so interconnected, right?
It's a beautiful metaphor.
And it's like, it was always so interconnected, you know, but when you don't realize that this impacts this, that impacts that.
Yeah. Well, especially because as an actor, we're bringing all of us. It's not just our physical selves. It's our emotional, spiritual, mental, everything. We're putting ourselves on the line. And emotions are sort of an enigma, but I've come to realize they're not as much of an enigma as we've made them seem. Yeah. It's just really connected to our energy body.
Yeah.
and the different muscle tissues and organs in our body. And it's like, oh, like an aha moment once you realize it's not some like mental workout you need to go through. It's not some superfluous, oh, sometimes emotions come, sometimes they don't. There's a way to figure out the flow within you once you understand how energy works.
Yeah.
So it's all connected.
Yeah. It's all connected. And the more that I think that people get the connection, and I think that like even on a bigger level, seeing that spirituality is in every aspect of your life, even beyond, it's merging. How does all parts of your life integrate with each other instead of having these different components, because I think that that's what a lot of people do is like, and I mean, maybe people that are watching, you probably do this in one area like called friend circles, right? You might have your friends that you do this with and the friends that you do that with and the friends that you do that with. They really don't interact with each other, and you kind of have, and maybe you even show up slightly different in those things. Like in this setting, you might show up and you're a little bit more professional. This one, you're a little bit goofier. This one, you're a little shyer, or whatever the case may be, but it's like it's all you, and how do we start to create this, what I'm hearing you say is this is more of like an even greater experience of totality, right? It's like this
authenticity, totality,
and this openness and this experience and this integration that's happening on a deep level.
You're right.
Yeah, I like that.
You're totally right. With writing and like filmmaking, my brain wants to make everything spiritual too, because it's just like my life.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. It's like all connected now.
It's all connected.
I used to separate it all, now it's all connected. So funny.
Yeah, and I think the more people like that allow it to, but it takes time, right?
Yes.
Because we're conditioned in a certain way.
Yeah.
And if we're conditioned in a certain way and we don't know, like you were saying that you did all of this different acting school, even, in university and everything, you studied so much, but it was created in well-meaningful ways, but separated, right? And there's different techniques. And this in Emmanuel, and what she's doing is she's saying, well, how do you pull all of you together? How do you pull your whole system, all of your chakras, all of your energy center? How do you become and use all of you?
Yes. So you're not like hiding those parts of yourself that you've disowned or whatever.
Yeah.
You're able to heal yourself, bring your full self with the character, and channel it.
And speaking of that, I mean, there must be a lot of healing that happens in this process too.
Yeah, I'm actually studying with Emmanuel. She writes the book so beautifully, and so I reached out to her after I read it, and I was like, I have to study with this woman. And she lives in France, but I was like, I don't care, I'm going to figure something out. But she does Skype lessons. And she teaches voice dialogue acting, which I learned about in this book. I'd never heard of it before. And
what
it's
is that?
A super healing experience. This is therapeutic, amazingly so. Oh my gosh. So what it is the concept that we all have, not just the Cristina, right? There's the different facets of Cristina. The Cristina with those group of friends, the Cristina with those, there's different parts of you. And they each serve a different function. What voice dialogue sessions do is you have Cristina in your aware ego watching this whole process that comes in when she's asked to, but it's opening the stage for these different parts of you to come forth. And we can figure out, like, oh, is there a part of you that's like a perpetrator or a victim or like the guard or the like excited bubbly you, and there's these different parts that you just let them speak, and then you figure out a dialogue between them, and they have like these conversations, and you move and you become the different characters, not in a way where you're premeditating it or where you're like in a hypnosis. You're very conscious and aware of the process, but you're like, oh, this is coming out, okay, I'm just gonna roll with it. And then you come back to your ego aware self, and the facilitator kind of integrates the meaning of what this dialogue healed.
Wow.
And so it's so healing, because it's these sub-personalities is what they are, these different selves. Yeah, I've had a lot of healing working with her.
Yeah.
Really powerful stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like really like a lot of Jungian psychology, like, and the different shadow aspects and the different parts of the self, and being brought to the surface and looking and hearing that each of that victim self or that, bubbly self or this other self, they all have things to say and contribute to your life, but a lot of times we shame or shut away, and we try not to hear the voice of those elements because we make them wrong.
And sometimes they get loud. And I've had this happen as an actor. Maybe you guys have too. Is if you shove something away, it's going to attract. And so I would attract these roles that had the same exact issues that I had in my personal life. And then I'd have emotional blocks. I had an emotional block for years where I couldn't be vulnerable in front of people. And so that was a whole subpersonality issue of it trying to protect me. And so I was able to start healing it through this and other techniques. I use other techniques as well, but this is a huge part of it. I think that was the point I wanted to make.
That's so with this in looking at that more holistic type of larger aspect of the journey of the soul. And we're here having a spiritual experience.
Yes.
And there's all of these different aspects. And I think like when people really tap into that deeper spiritual journey, they realize that everything is okay. And every part of us is okay. We just need to learn how to accept it. And, but some of the shame, the guilt, the protection, the different aspects start to fade away as we see these were just different chapters in our soul development of understanding. And I think that when people can get to that like deep truth and acceptance, then they can be the best version of them and the best that they can give forward in whatever they do.
I totally agree, because then there's not an inner war or battle going on with these selves or whatever energetically.
Well, and then look at it like channeling. How it manifested in acting and stuff for you. If you had this like part of you that felt shamed or whatever reason, or felt that they couldn't be hurt because they were still hurting or grieving inside, whatever the reason for the protection was going on, then that protection was so strong in you that it caused you not to be vulnerable. Well, then how is not being vulnerable hindering your acting career?
Yeah.
When that was happening, right?
Huge.
Right? Exactly. So,
these are
the benefits of this, And for those that are listening, it's like one of the things that you kind of need to do as an actor.
You're an emotional stunt person. You gotta have that vulnerability.
Well, and that vulnerability, you're putting yourself in front of, on tape, in front of auditions with a group of people. You're putting yourself on stage. You're putting yourself, as the forward spotlight, and so all eyes on you. It's kind of like the number one fear in the world besides fear of dying is stage fright, because people don't like to be vulnerable because they don't like to be judged, and there's a protective side so that people don't want to get up on stage and speak, right? So I'm just thinking of from that mindset, not being an actress myself, but like knowing that those different aspects. But that has to be affecting, right? And then everybody that is listening, maybe you don't have the protecting self that is there with that issue, but maybe you have something else going on.
Totally, and it can get loud and it can throw you off balance, I believe. So it's all about creating harmony so they all work together. All of you works together.
Yeah. There could be a part of yourself that ends up, being irritated and this or that, or a part of yourself that's always late for things, that's ruining opportunities, or a part of you, there's all of these different manifestations, right? Could be a part of you that doesn't feel that you're good enough or important enough, so you don't turn in the things on time, or you don't submit things that you think that you deserve because part of you doesn't feel like you deserve it, right?
And there's a correlation here with energy healings, which Emmanuel makes in the book as well, and she highly I've never tried it, but she talks highly of the RISE method, which is based on polarity theory, which is an energetic healing. But, I do Reiki and you do pranic and we do our different sorts of energy healing. But that's sort of so similar, right?
Yeah.
In the case that it's like you're holding a block within you, that block may manifest in an organ or a muscle, the way we see them, but it also might have its own personality.
Right.
You know? And so it's interesting, like looking at the different angles of this.
Yeah. And it does have its own personality, because there's a reason that energy block existed, and most of the time that energy block existed because of some form of experience that you went through.
Yeah.
And so what was going on with you in that moment that you went through it, and what did you make that mean about yourself that you formed an energy block?
Mm-hmm. Interesting, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So whether it's through a conscious awareness,
going deep on the podcast.
Yeah. But it is like an energy clearing and healing, this technique. But she does recommend doing energy work too. So throwing it out there to the shop, come get an energy healing or clearing. If you're an actor, it's part of your self-care.
Yeah.
Like regular people too.
Yeah, anybody's self-care.
Anyone.
You know, like, and man, you know, like, there's a lot of things that we can do on our own, and there's a lot of things that we're so overwhelmed with that we need the help and assistance of others, right?
Yes.
You know, and I think that, you know, it's like, okay, I can try to give my foot a massage, but it's so different if somebody's doing reflexology on my foot. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just there's a different way of things that and you can do so much work on yourself, but then
I think that's important too.
Yeah.
Giving yourself love.
Yeah, giving yourself love, of course, but I mean, there's nothing, what I mean by that is there's nothing wrong with needing support from others. And in fact, you know, how we're raised as far as humans, we're pactual beings in community.
Yeah.
Right? You know,
Yeah.
and it's like, I support you, you support me, I need to give you this, you give me that, I back rub you, you back rub me, you know, like, or healing or different things.
Exactly.
And
we might have our own blind spots, and we need someone else to see that too.
That's why you work with coaches.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you have these aha moments or different teaching mechanisms that are taught to you through books and things that you read, like this one.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. What else? What else do you want to share today on this? I know you had a couple points that you were...
I think we talked about most of my points. Well, yeah, I guess bouncing off with the self-love, a lot of actors are naturally sensitive souls, and I've fallen into this category too, that we don't even realize it, but we seek the validation from others so strongly. And so then we put our worth on, does the crowd like me?
Yeah.
Do my parents support me in my acting? What did my spouse think of this? Or whatever it might be, you know?
Yeah.
And that leads to a split of the self, I believe. And then part of you becomes really insecure. Mm-hmm. And Emmanuel outlines this as well, where part of you also becomes a narcissist. And so there's this polarity split that can happen in a lot of actors. And I think most of us have dealt with it. And what I've learned through using this technique and through a couple others and just my own spiritual growth is that it's not healthy for me to seek validation from others at all. My measure needs to be on what do I feel about the work? What do I think about the work?
Yeah.
And so then not placing my self-worth on anybody else's validation of my talent or whatever it might be is one of the healthiest things, I'm getting emotional here, I think I've ever done in my entire life. And I recommend it, and it's just a lot of self-love and caring about what you think about yourself and what you think about your art. And I think it brings you into a more authentic place as an artist as well.
And a far more fulfilled place, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people they run after what they think will give them the greatest crowd satisfaction instead of what they really would be happiest with.
Yeah.
Right? You know, it's like, okay, well, this is, you know, I really want to do this, and I'm really drawn to this, and I like this type of acting, or I want to play this role in this story, but then this one's seen as more prestigious or more this, but it doesn't even feel right to me, but I'm going to go for that because I want that. And there's a compromise of self that happens.
Exactly.
And then also, like, everywhere you go, there you are, right? And we're all on our own journey. I love that you shared this, because I think one of the biggest things, acting in many other forms, whether you're an actor or actress or not, like, people do that so often in life, is that they care so much about the other opinions, and they're constantly looking at them as the measuring stick, but we're our own measuring stick, right? Yeah. And as long as every day we're progressing, and if we stop comparing to where somebody else is or what somebody else thinks, and say, where am I and where are my next steps that I'm going, and is this feel good to me, then you're going to get further than you could ever even imagine.
Yeah.
And you're going to be more fulfilled along the road the whole time.
Because everything you do is something that is aligned with you.
Yeah.
And you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah,
I totally agree. And then other than that, I so highly recommend this book. We carry it at the Liberate, so please come get it.
Yeah.
If you're an actor and you're curious about spiritual stuffs, it's called A Balancing Act by Emmanuel Chalet, and the technique is called Energize, but she also teaches voice dialogue acting, which is how I found her online. You can search it. But other techniques I also recommend are The Unlimited Actor. There's a book on that, and it's very much chakra-based.
Okay.
Perticamp Emotional Method, I also study that via Skype, which is the emotions going through the different organs and bringing them up, different parts of your body, so physically connecting instantaneously to an emotion. And other than that, I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah, and Kristin is also an amazing healer and intuitive, and does a lot of work with clients. And so where can they find you?
Well, I no longer work at the shops, but I loved working here. It was a great launching pad for me. But I run my own recorded video spiritual business called Cherry Blossom Spirituality, which you can find me at www.cherryblossom.spirituality.com.
I love the www.
Yeah, you like that? Yeah.
www. Cool. Yeah, and we'll put all of Kristin's information there, and also, we have it in the store. We'll probably try to get it up online as well for you guys, so that if anybody's watching from far away, but if you also email us, if we don't have it up online, we can also send it to out of any of the postal carriers and things as well.
Wonderful. I highly recommend it. And Emmanuel is an amazing soul, wonderful to work with. I think she is a light to this world. I really recommend it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and I hope this was helpful for people. And until next time.
Bye. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this conversation, like it, subscribe, and share it with your friends. If you want some more amazing resources on your path of liberation, head over to liberateyourself.com and sign up for our mailing list. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram at Liberate Hollywood, all one word, or Liberate Emporium, all one word. Until next time, liberate yourself.
Hi, Cristina here, founder of Liberate. I wanted to let you know that all of our amazing practitioners, healers, and intuitives are available for remote sessions. And we are continuously adding new classes, workshops, and meditations to serve you every week. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that we can help you liberate yourself. Hi everybody, I'm Cristina, founder of Liberate. This is our mascots, Miss Piggy and Mr. Chew. Liberate is like the Willy Wonka chocolate factory for spirituality. You might wonder what the heck that is. And so basically, Liberate is a place of sheer magic, activating and reigniting that magic into you so that you can live your fullest potential and most fulfilled life. When you walk through the door, you're gonna see magic everywhere you look. You look down and you see a crystal floor made with over 10,000 pounds of crystals. You say that's a lot, but I know I laid them and had to do numerous trips to the crystal store to buy more and more crystals. There's all of these beautiful magical gemstones that are activating and creating healing from the beneath and the surface. You see the tree of life when you first walk in. You go upstairs and every room has its custom sacred geometry mural in it. And then you notice that each of the rooms are labeled with different names of deities or archangels from different traditions and religions from all over the world. This is Liberate. Liberate is a space of union. Liberate is a space of creativity. Liberate is a space of expansion. And we're here to help heal you, transform, and help you rediscover yourself.